The message came early in the morning. Captain Yuna Kim was in the training room when her device made a sound. She stopped her exercise and looked at the screen. She read the words 2 times because she could not believe them. Transfer order. Report to Outpost Sigma 7. Monster Containment Division. Effective immediately. Yuna stood very still. Around her, other officers stopped what they were doing. They looked at her with different expressions. Some looked sorry. Some looked happy. Lieutenant Taiho Park was one of the happy ones. He smiled in a way that was not kind. Monster Division, he said loudly so everyone could hear. That is where they send people they want to forget about. Yuna did not show any emotion on her face. She knew why this was happening. 3 weeks ago, she had made a formal complaint against Commander Dong Yun-beek. He had lied in his reports about a mission. Because of his lies, 12 soldiers had died. Yuna had told the truth about what happened. Now, she was being punished for it. Commander Beek had powerful friends. Those friends were protecting him, and they were getting rid of her. Outpost Sigma 7 was at the very edge of human space. It was a place no one wanted to go. The station floated around a dead moon, far from everything. His job was to hold and study the strange creatures that humans had found during their travels into space. These were not normal animals. These were beings that had destroyed entire colonies. Things that could kill without warning. Nightmares made real. People who went to Sigma 7 did not come back. Not because they all died, though some did die. They did not come back because their careers were finished. No one would promote them again. No one would remember their names. I will send you messages, Yuna said to Taiho in a flat voice. She picked up her bag and walked out of the room. She did not look back. The journey to Sigma 7 took 3 days. Yuna spent the time reading files about the station. What she learned did not make her feel better. The station was old and breaking down. The crew was small. Morale was very low. Everyone there had been sent as punishment, just like her. When her ship arrived at Sigma 7, Yuna looked through the window. The station was huge but dark. Many lights were broken. The metal walls looked old and tired. It reminded her of a prison. She walked through the docking area with her bag over her shoulder. The air smelled strange. The lights flickered above her head. She could hear machines making unhealthy sounds in the walls. A woman was waiting for her. She was in her 50s with gray in her hair and dark circles under her eyes. Her uniform was neat but faded. This was Director Jisoo Han, the person in charge of Sigma 7. Another sacrifice from Central Command, Director Han said. Her voice was not angry, just tired. What did you do to end up here? I told the truth, Yuna answered. Director Han made a sound that was almost a laugh. You will fit right in. Everyone here made the same mistake. She led Yuna through the corridors. They passed crew members who moved slowly, like people who have forgotten how to care. No one smiled. No one talked unless they had to. The whole station felt like it was waiting to die. We have 42 people here, Director Han explained as they walked. That is not enough to run a station this size, but Command does not care. We get the minimum supplies, the minimum support. They want us to fail quietly. How many creatures are in containment? Yuna asked. Over 300. Some have been here for decades. Some are new. All of them are dangerous. They stopped at a door. Director Han put her hand on the panel and it opened. Inside was a small room with a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out at the dead moon. Your quarters, Director Han said. Rest today. Tomorrow you will meet the staff and learn your duties. They will not be exciting. Nothing here is exciting. We just keep the monsters locked up and try not to die. Yuna put her bag on the bed. What happens to the monsters? What do you mean? What do we do with them? Study them? Try to communicate with them? Director Han looked at her for a long moment. Something changed in her eyes. It might have been curiosity. It might have been warning. We do nothing with them, she said slowly. We feed them. We sedate them when needed. We keep them contained. That is all. That is all. But some of these creatures are intelligent. The files say many things. But our orders are clear. Contain, nothing more. Director Han stepped back toward the door. A word of advice, Captain. Do not ask too many questions. Do not try to change anything. The people who try to change things here end up dead or worse. Just do your job, survive your time, and maybe someday you will get transferred somewhere better. She left. The door closed behind her. Yuna stood alone in her small room. Through the window, she could see the endless darkness of space. Somewhere out there were the colonies where she had served with honor. Somewhere out there, Commander Beak was free while she was trapped in this forgotten place. She should have felt defeated. She should have felt hopeless. But Yuna did not feel those things. She felt angry. And when Yuna felt angry, she did not give up. She found a way forward. They had sent her here to disappear. They had sent her here to be forgotten. But Yuna Kim had never been good at following expectations. She sat down at the desk and began to read every file on Sigma 7. If this was going to be her prison, she was going to understand every corner of it. And then she was going to change it. Yuna spent her first week learning about the station. She walked through every corridor. She read every report. She talked to every crew member who would speak with her. Most of them said very little. They had learned that talking could bring trouble. But the files told her everything she needed to know. And what they told her made her stomach turn. The containment levels went deep into the station. Level after level of cells, each one holding something that should not exist. Yuna walked through them with Dr. Hyungwoo Choi, the station scientist. He was a thin man with nervous eyes who jumped at small sounds. This is Specimen 47, he said, stopping at a dark cell. We call it the Wraith. Yuna looked through the thick glass. At first, she saw nothing. Then the darkness moved. It shifted and swirled like smoke. She saw shapes that might have been teeth. Eyes that glowed and then disappeared. It came from the Andromeda sector, Dr. Choi said. It has killed 14 handlers since we captured it. Very aggressive. Very dangerous. The file says it tried to communicate for 3 years before it became violent. Dr. Choi looked uncomfortable. The file says many things. It says we ignored its attempts to talk to us. It says we kept it in total darkness, even though it asked for light. Captain, these creatures are not like us. We cannot trust them. Yuna said nothing. She just looked at the swirling darkness. Somewhere in there was a being that had tried to reach out. And humans had answered with silence and pain. They moved on. The next cell held water instead of air. Through the thick glass, Yuna could see something massive floating in the blue darkness. It was the size of a small ship. Its body was covered with patterns that glowed soft and slow. Specimen 112. The Leviathan, Dr. Choi said. We keep it sedated most of the time. When it wakes up, it screams. Screams? In our minds. Telepathy. Everyone on the station feels it. It causes nightmares, headaches. Some people have had mental breakdowns because of it. Why does it scream? Dr. Choi shrugged. We do not know. We do not want to know. We just keep it asleep. Yuna pressed her hand against the glass. The creature was beautiful in a terrible way. Old, ancient, older than human history, maybe. And they kept it drugged in a tank, screaming into a void where no one would listen. The last cell they visited was different from the others. It was larger, with walls that seemed to absorb light. Inside was something that looked almost human, but not quite. Its arms were too long. Its joints bent in wrong directions. Its eyes reflected light that was not there. Specimen 89, Dr. Choi said quietly. Unknown origin. We do not know where it came from or what it wants. It has not moved in 6 years. It just stands there, watching. Has anyone tried to communicate with it? No one goes in that cell, Captain. No one. Yuna looked at the motionless figure. It was looking back at her. She felt certain of that, even though its eyes gave nothing away. That night, Yuna called a meeting with all the senior staff. There were only 8 of them. Director Han, Dr. Choi, Security Chief Minho Kang, Medical Officer Sujin Lee, and 4 others who ran different parts of the station. They gathered in a room with broken chairs and flickering lights. They looked at Yuna with expressions that ranged from curious to annoyed. I have read all the files, Yuna began. I have seen the containment levels. And I have a question. No one responded. Why are we torturing these creatures? The silence that followed was heavy. Security Chief Minho leaned forward. He was a large man with scars on his face and hands. Torture is a strong word, Captain. Is it? Specimen 47 asked for light. We gave it darkness. The Leviathan screams in pain, and we drug it into silence. Specimen 89 has been alone in a cell for 6 years. We do not feed them properly. We do not study them. We do not try to understand them. We just keep them in boxes until they die. These things have killed people, Minho said, his voice getting harder. They are monsters. Some of them only became violent after years of mistreatment. The files show that clearly. We created the danger. We made them into monsters. Director Han spoke for the first time. Captain Kim, I understand you are new here, but these protocols come from Central Command. We do not have the authority to change them. Then I am requesting that authority. Everyone stared at her. You want to change how we treat 300 dangerous alien creatures? Dr. Choi asked. Based on 1 week of reading files? I want to stop doing harm when there is no reason for it. I want to try communication instead of isolation. I want to treat intelligent beings with basic respect. You will get people killed, Minho said flatly. People are already dying. The files show 5 deaths in the past 2 years. All from creatures that were once peaceful and became violent after we pushed them too far. Yuna stood up. I am not asking you to release them. I am asking you to stop making things worse. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Director Han sighed. What exactly do you want to do? Yuna had been waiting for this question. She had spent 3 nights preparing her answer. I want to start with Specimen 89. The one that has not moved in 6 years. I want to sit with it, talk to it, see if it will respond. That is suicide, Minho said. Maybe, but it is my life to risk. Yuna looked around the room. They sent me here because they wanted me gone. Fine, I am gone. But I will not spend my time here doing nothing while being suffer. I will not follow orders that exist only because no one had the courage to question them. She walked to the door and stopped. Tomorrow morning, I am going into that cell. Anyone who wants to help me is welcome. Anyone who wants to stop me should know that I do not stop easily. She left them sitting in silence. In her room that night, Yuna did not sleep. She stared at the ceiling and thought about what she was going to do. It might kill her. The creature might tear her apart the moment she entered its cell. But she had seen the look in its eyes. That was not the look of a monster. That was the look of someone who had been waiting a very long time to be seen. The next morning, Yuna walked to the containment level alone. She carried nothing. No weapons. No tools. Just herself. Security Chief Minho was waiting at the entrance to Specimen 89 cell. His face was tight with anger and worry. "I cannot stop you," he said. "But I want you to know this is foolish. I know what you think. If that thing kills you, I will have to write the report. I hate writing reports." Despite everything, Yuna almost smiled. "Then hope I survive." The cell door opened with a heavy sound. Yuna stepped inside. The door closed behind her. The creature stood in the center of the room. It had not moved from its position. Its strange eyes watched her. Too many joints. Arms too long. A body that seemed to shift when she was not looking directly at it. Yuna sat down on the floor. She crossed her legs. She placed her hands on her knees. And she waited. Hours passed. The creature did not move. Yuna did not move. Outside the cell, security officers watched through cameras, ready to rush in if something happened. But nothing happened. When her 2 hours were finished, Yuna stood up slowly. She bowed her head slightly toward the creature. Then she left. The next day, she did the same thing. And the day after that. And the day after that. On the fourth day, the creature moved. It was small. Just a twitch of its long fingers. But Yuna saw it. And she saw that its eyes were following her now. Before, they had been empty. Now there was something behind them. Curiosity, maybe. Or confusion. On the seventh day, it spoke. The voice did not come from its mouth. It came from everywhere. It filled her head like water filling a cup. The words were clear but strange, as if they had been translated from something very different. "Why do you not fear?" Yuna took a breath. She had been waiting for this moment. Hoping for it. Now that it was here, her heart was beating very fast. "I do fear," she said honestly. "But fear is not a reason to be cruel. The others, they scream. They run. They hurt. I know. I am sorry for what they did to you." The creature was silent for a moment. Then it moved. It unfolded itself, rising up until it almost touched the ceiling. Up close, Yuna could see that its body was not solid. It was made of thousands of small pieces that moved together, like a puzzle that was always solving itself. We are architects. We build worlds. We were sleeping when your kind found us. You took us. You put us in cages. I did not know that. I am sorry. The creature's head tilted. Its eyes studied her in a way that felt very old. Very deep. Now you know. What will you do, small human? Yuna looked up at this being that could probably kill her with a thought. She did not look away. I am going to fix this. The word spread through the station. The new captain had talked to Specimen 89. She had entered the cell of a creature that no one had approached in 6 years, and she had walked out alive. More than alive. She had made contact. Some people thought she was crazy. Some people thought she was lucky. But a few people started to think that maybe she was right. Yuna moved on to other specimens. Each one was different. Each one required a different approach. The wraith lived in darkness because that was what it was made of. But darkness without light was empty, boring, dead. Yuna brought small lights into its cell. Not bright ones. Soft ones that the wraith could absorb and play with. She gave it patterns to look at. Shapes that moved. The first time the wraith spoke to her, it did so through shadows. It made shapes on the wall. A star. A planet. A ship. It was showing her where it came from. "Show me more," Yuna said. Over the following weeks, the wraith showed her maps of star systems that humans had never seen. It knew things about space that could take human scientists decades to discover. And all it had wanted was someone to ask. The Leviathan was harder. Its screams were screams of loss. It was a social creature, used to being connected to others of its kind across huge distances. For 40 years, it had been alone, cut off, isolated in a way that was torture for something like it. Yuna went to the engineering team. Can we modify the communication arrays? Can we broadcast on the frequencies the Leviathan uses? Chief Engineer Doyin Shin looked at her like she had asked him to build a new star. That would take weeks, maybe months, then start now. It took 6 weeks. But when they finally broadcast the signal, something answered. From deep in space, far beyond human borders, a response came back. The Leviathan felt it. Everyone on the station felt what happened next. Joy. Pure, overwhelming joy. It flooded through their minds like sunlight after years of darkness. Crew members who had not smiled in months found tears on their faces. The Leviathan was not alone anymore. After that, everything changed. The creatures began to cooperate. They shared knowledge freely. The architects explained building techniques that humans had never imagined. The Wraith provided navigation data that opened new paths through dangerous space. The Leviathan's people, once they understood what had happened, offered friendship instead of war. The crew of Sigma 7 changed too. They walked faster. They talked more. They started to believe that their work meant something. Dr. Choi came to Yuna one night. His eyes were different now. The fear was still there, but it was smaller. "How did you know?" he asked. "How did you know they would respond to kindness?" Yuna thought about the question. "I did not know, but I believed that intelligence seeks connection. Every creature we have here tried to communicate with us at some point. We just were not listening. We were afraid. Fear made us cruel. Cruelty made them dangerous. It was a cycle. I just wanted to break it." Dr. Choi nodded slowly. "Central Command will not like this. They want these creatures controlled, not befriended. Central Command sent me here to be forgotten. They are not paying attention." But she was wrong about that, because 6 months later, Central Command came to visit. And they were very interested in what Yuna had done, just not in the way she had hoped. The ship that arrived was big and new. It was the kind of ship that belonged to important people. Yuna watched it dock from the observation deck. Behind her, Director Han stood with her arms crossed. "Admiral Sung-ho Yoon," Han said quietly. "He is Commander Beek's mentor, the man who protected him after your complaint. I know who he is. He did not come all this way to congratulate you, Captain. I know that too." Admiral Yoon arrived with 12 security officers. They wore full combat gear, as if they expected to fight a war. The Admiral himself was a tall man with silver hair and cold eyes. He walked like someone who expected everyone to move out of his way. Everyone did. He met Yuna in the main conference room. His officers stood behind him like a wall. Director Han and the senior staff stood behind Yuna, but they looked scared. Only Security Chief Minho looked ready for trouble. "Captain Kim," the Admiral said. Her name sounded like an insult in his mouth. "I have heard interesting things about your work here. I hope the reports were accurate, Admiral. They were concerning." He pulled out a datapad and looked at it with an expression of disgust. "You have changed security protocols without authorization. You have made contact with dangerous specimens. You have allowed creatures to communicate with entities outside this station. I have turned a failing facility into a productive one. The intelligence we have gathered in 6 months is worth more than everything this station produced in the last 20 years. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "You have made friends with monsters. I have made allies of intelligent beings. They are property of the human government. They are weapons to be studied and controlled. Not." He searched for the word rehabilitated. Yuna felt her anger rising but kept her voice calm. They are beings with minds and memories and cultures. They have knowledge that could advance humanity by centuries, and they are willing to share it. All they ask in return is decent treatment. All they ask? The Admiral laughed without humor. These things have killed hundreds of humans. They destroyed colonies. They are enemies. Some of them fought back when we invaded their space. Some of them defended themselves when we attacked. That does not make them evil. It makes them survivors. The Admiral put down his datapad. His voice became very quiet, very cold. Captain Kim, you are relieved of command. Effective immediately. You will be transported back to Central Command to face charges of insubordination, endangering military personnel, and unauthorized contact with hostile entities. On whose authority? On mine, and on the authority of the Human Defense Council. Yuna looked at the officers behind him. Their hands were on their weapons. This had been planned. They had come here to arrest her and put things back the way they were. The creatures would be sedated. The connections would be cut. Everything she had built would be destroyed. I see, she said quietly. She did not have time to say anything else. The station shook. It was not a small shake. It felt like the whole structure was being moved by a giant hand. The lights flickered and died. Red emergency lights came on. Alarms screamed through every corridor. Containment breach, all levels. Admiral Yoon's face went white. What did you do? I did nothing. Yuna's voice was calm. Too calm. They did. Every cell on the station had opened at the same time. 300 specimens were free. Creatures that could tear through metal. Beings that could bend space. Entities that existed in ways humans could not understand. All of them were moving. The Admiral grabbed his communicator. All units emergency protocol. Contain the breach. Lethal force authorized. But his words meant nothing. The first creature to reach the conference room was Specimen 89, the Architect. It flowed through the walls like water through sand. Its thousands of pieces came together in front of them, forming something almost human-shaped. Almost, but not quite. The security officers opened fire. Their weapons made loud sounds. Bullets flew through the air. They passed through the Architect's body without effect, like throwing stones at fog. The Architect did not attack. It simply stood there, looking at them with its impossible eyes. When it spoke, everyone heard. We have listened. We have watched. The Wraith came next. It poured out of the shadows in the corners of the room. It wrapped around the Admiral like a dark cloud. He screamed. His officers tried to help, but their weapons did nothing. The Leviathan's presence filled their minds. Not with pain. Not with screaming. With a question. You came to punish her for mercy. Why? Admiral Yoon could not answer. He was shaking too hard to speak. The Wraith held him tight but did not hurt him. Not yet. More creatures arrived. They came through doors and walls and spaces that should not exist. The room filled with beings that looked like nightmares. But none of them attacked. They formed a circle around the humans, watching, waiting. This one, the Architect said, extending something like an arm toward Yuna, has shown what your kind can be. She listened when others refused. She showed kindness when others showed cruelty. The arm moved to point at Admiral Yoon. You represent what your kind has been. Fear, hate, violence without understanding. Yuna stepped forward. She walked between the creatures until she was in the center of the room. Every eye, human and alien, was on her. They came because mercy threatens them, she said. Her voice was steady. People who rule through fear cannot allow kindness to succeed. If it works, if compassion brings better results than cruelty, then everything they believe falls apart. She looked at the Admiral. He was still wrapped in shadow. his eyes wide with terror. "You sent me here to disappear. You thought this place would break me. Instead, I found the lies you cannot buy and cannot frighten. That scares you more than any monster ever could." The architect spoke again. "We have a choice to give. We can kill these humans. We can destroy this station and everyone on it. We can take our freedom through blood." The creatures around the room stirred. Some of them had suffered for years, decades. They had every reason to want revenge. Or, the architect continued, "We can show that we are not what they believe us to be. We can prove that their fear was always the true monster." The Leviathan's voice joined in, filling their minds with warmth. "The small one has earned our trust. We will follow her choice." Every creature in the room turned to Yuna. 300 beings, some ancient beyond counting, some powerful beyond measure, all looking at one human woman and waiting for her decision. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about the soldiers who had died because of Commander Beak's lies. She thought about the years of suffering these creatures had endured. She thought about what kind of future she wanted to build. Then she opened her eyes. "Let him go." The Wraith released Admiral Yoon. He fell to the floor, gasping for breath. "Let them all go. No one dies today." The creatures did not question her. They pulled back, giving the humans space. The Admiral's officers lowered their weapons. They had no fight left in them. Yuna walked to where the Admiral lay. She stood over him and spoke in a voice that carried through the room. "You will return to Central Command. You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them that these beings are not weapons to be controlled. They are allies to be respected. They will never accept that," the Admiral whispered. "Then they will lose us. All of us." She gestured at the creatures around her. "This is the future. They can be part of it, or they can be left behind." She turned away from him. "The choice is no longer mine to make. It never was. I just opened the door." The creatures began to return to their cells. Not because they were forced. Because they chose to. They had made their point. They had shown their strength and their mercy. They had shown what they could be when someone bothered to ask. The footage from Sigma-7 spread across every human colony within days. Someone on the station had recorded everything. The creatures emerging from their cells. The Admiral surrounded by beings that could have killed him with a thought. And Yuna, standing in the middle of it all, choosing mercy over revenge. People watched it millions of times. They shared it with friends and family. They argued about what it meant. Some said Yuna was a traitor who had sided with monsters against her own kind. Others said she was a hero who had prevented a war. Most people did not know what to think. They had spent their whole lives believing that these creatures were enemies. Now they were seeing something different. Central Command did not know what to do either. They could not punish Yuna without punishing all of Sigma-7, and they could not punish Sigma-7 without angering beings who had just proven they could escape whenever they wanted. Commander Dong Yoon Beak was arrested 2 weeks later. The investigation Yuna had started finally finished. His lies were exposed. The families of the soldiers who died because of him finally got justice. He would spend the rest of his life in prison. Admiral Yoon retired quietly. Some said he was forced out. Some said he could not face what he had seen. Either way, he disappeared from public life and was never heard from again. And Yuna received a message that changed everything. It was an offer, not a punishment, not a transfer, an offer to lead something new. The human government was creating a special division. It would handle all contact with the beings humanity had collected over the years of expansion. But it would do things differently. Instead of containment, the focus would be cooperation. Instead of control, partnership. They were calling it the Interspecies Defense Coalition. And they wanted Yuna to command it. She accepted. The first year was hard. Not everyone trusted her. Not everyone trusted the creatures. There were protests. There were threats. Some politicians tried to shut the program down before it could begin. But results are hard to argue with. The Wraith became the best scout in human space. It could move through shadows and darkness in ways no ship or drone could match. It found hidden dangers before they became problems. It mapped regions that humans had thought impossible to explore. The Leviathan's people came to visit. They arrived in ships that sang with colors humans had no names for. They brought gifts of knowledge and technology. They opened trade routes through parts of space that had been too dangerous to travel. What used to take years now took days. The architects began building. They constructed stations and habitats that used a fraction of the resources human designs required. They repaired damaged colonies in weeks instead of years. They taught human engineers secrets that had taken their species millions of years to learn. Other creatures found their own purposes. Some became teachers. Some became explorers. Some simply wanted to go home, and Una made sure they could. She kept her promise. Those who wanted freedom got freedom. Those who wanted to help got the chance to help. Not everything was peaceful. Obeisance is peaceful. Some beings did not forgive what had been done to them. Some chose violence. Some had to be stopped. Una did not pretend that trust was automatic or easy. She just insisted that it was possible. The first real test came 3 years after the coalition was formed. Deep space sensors detected something coming. Something huge. It was a swarm. Billions of creatures moving together like a single hungry mind. They had come from another galaxy. They had been traveling for thousands of years. And everywhere they went, they consumed planets, stars, civilizations, everything. Humanity had never faced anything like this. Their weapons were not enough. Their ships were not fast enough. Alone, they would be eaten just like everyone else. But they were not alone anymore. General Una Kim stood on the bridge of her flagship. It was called the Open Hand, a name she had chosen herself. Around her stood beings that would have been unimaginable just a few years ago. The architect was there, its body constantly shifting and reforming. The Wraith moved in the shadows behind her, ready to disappear and reappear anywhere it was needed. Representatives of the Leviathan's people floated in tanks of water, their thoughts linking every ship in the fleet together. And there were others. Hundreds of species that humanity had met through the coalition. Some had been enemies once. Some had been slaves. Some had been prisoners, like the ones on Sigma 7. Now they were all here, facing the same threat. The swarm filled the view screen. It was so large it blocked out the stars behind it. They have never encountered resistance, Una said quietly. They do not understand cooperation. They only know how to consume. The architect's voice filled her mind. Then we will teach them something new. Una smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. All ships, this is General Kim. You know why we are here. You know what we face. Some of you were once our prisoners. Some of you were our enemies. Today, you are our partners. Today, we fight together. Not for humanity. Not for any single species. For all of us. She paused. Across thousands of ships, millions of beings waited for her command. They sent me to the monster division because they wanted me to disappear. They thought the creatures there were weapons to be feared. They were wrong. The monsters were never the threat. They were always the answer. We just had to be brave enough to listen. She stood straight. Her voice carried across the fleet. All ships, engage. The fleet moved as one. Human warships flew beside creatures of shadow and light. Beings that existed in multiple dimensions struck at the swarm from angles it could not understand. The Leviathans sang their war songs, coordinating attacks across distances that should have been impossible. The swarm had traveled for thousands of years, consuming everything in its path. It had destroyed civilizations beyond counting. It had never been stopped. Until now. The battle lasted for days. Ships were lost. Lives were lost. The swarm adapted and fought back with mindless hunger. But the coalition adapted faster. They worked together in ways the swarm could not predict. They supported each other in ways the swarm could not understand. And in the end, the swarm broke. What was left of it fled back into the darkness between galaxies. It would not return. It had learned that this corner of space was not empty prey. This corner of space had defenders. When the fighting was over, Una stood at the window of her ship and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, Commander Beak was rotting in prison. Admiral Yoon was living in exile. The people who had tried to destroy her were forgotten. The architect appeared beside her. Its form was calm now, almost peaceful. "You have changed things," it said. "Not just for your kind. For all of us." "I just opened doors," Una said. "You all walk through them." "Perhaps. But someone had to open them first. Someone had to believe it was possible." Una thought about the day she had received her transfer orders. She thought about walking into Sigma 7 expecting to be forgotten. She thought about sitting on the floor of a cell, waiting for a creature to speak to her. "They meant to sideline me," she said softly. The architect made a sound that might have been laughter. "Instead, you became something greater. You became the bridge between worlds. You became the proof that fear does not have to win." Una nodded. Below her, the fleet was returning home. Humans and aliens, former enemies and new friends, all traveling together. "It is not about being great," she said. "It is about being willing to try. Anyone can do that." The architect was quiet for a moment. Then it spoke once more. "Perhaps, but you were the one who did." Una watched the stars and smiled. The universe was vast and dangerous and full of things that humans did not understand. But it was also full of possibility, full of connections waiting to be made, full of OIs waiting to be found. All it took was someone willing to listen. And Una Kim had always been good at listening. The end.